Hi, if you clicked on this video, I'm just going to jump right in. My name is Folabo. This video is primarily for the people who either have an interview and are wondering how to prep for it, or people who are thinking ahead about the bar course scholarship and want to know more information about the interviewing aspect. This video specifically is tailored just for the interviews, how to ace them, how to prep, and how to perform to your best ability on the day. So what is my qualification for giving you any advice? I was awarded the Lord Mansfield Scholarship and the Residential Scholarship, so this is basically the things that I did and things that I think definitely helped me, and things that I've seen, having lived with other scholars as well, that we all have in common. And I would say some of my advice is a little bit tailored to Lincoln's Inn, but I'm sure if you are looking to apply this to any other scholarship, this definitely would still be a great video to watch. I will also have the timestamps linked down below for you to make this easier, because I feel like this is going to be a little bit lengthy. So let's jump right in. Resources for the interview. So I'm a fanatic for documenting everything. I love to document things and make things easier for other people. So I have quite a few different documents listed down below. Let me go through them now. I have an interview question pack. Now this interview question pack were a bunch of questions that I created myself when I was searching about like what are typical interview questions that you get for a scholarship generally, not just legal scholarships, but just generally. And I think they apply in this situation as well, definitely. And I made sure that I was at least able to think of an example for most of the questions by the time I had my interview. So I have my interview question pack down below. I would highly recommend using that. It's just there really to get you thinking about all the different questions that they could ask you that you might not expect, essentially. Some other people that have been of great use is Taz. Taz also has a YouTube channel, and you will probably see his video above mine before you see mine anyways. But if you haven't watched Taz's video, then I highly recommend watching his video. It was really helpful. I have a link to Reddit. I know Reddit is not a reliable source, it's not a credible source, but you know, we are human beings, and a lot of people do go to Reddit to share their personal experiences, and someone did share how they secured a major bar course scholarship on there, so I've included the link to that down below as well to give you their advice and what they said on there. Then I have the scholarship application pack. That is just my advice for the scholarship. If you have LinkedIn, there's a woman called Katie Stephan, I believe, if I'm saying that right. Katie, she gives really great advice about bar course scholarship, what she did, and she has a bunch of resources that are really helpful, especially when you're just figuring out where to apply and all of those things. There's another video that I've linked down below, and that video, I loved it. It was a panel of past scholarship winners, past scholarship awardees speaking about their experience with the interview, and honestly that video was one of the first ones I found that I found really helpful as well, because they go into detail about what to expect in the interview process, what they did, so if you're applying to Lincoln's Inn, there is a specific part where you have to do an advocacy exercise. I'm not sure about the other inns, I'm sure they have some sort of exercise that you have to do as well, because we are applying to become barristers. And if they do, then that video will just be all the more helpful as well as this. So those are the resources that I've linked down below, and I hope that helps you in your journey and in hopefully being awarded the scholarship yourself. Firstly, I want to say, if you have got the confirmation that you have an interview, honestly, well done. It's such a huge achievement, and I know Taz also said this in his video, but please don't underestimate how much of a big achievement it really is, because they wouldn't waste your time. If they didn't think you had potential to actually get the scholarship, they wouldn't invite you to the interview stage. So you've done really well in your written application, and they said, yes, we would like to see more of you, would like to see what your advocacy is like, what you are in person, how you present yourself, and your potential in person. So congratulations if you got an interview. I know you must be really nervous, so let me just carry on and speak about the tips that I have. My advice will cover the structure of the interview specifically at Lincoln's Inn, and then I will give you general tips about the scholarship. So this is the advice that's specific to Lincoln's Inn and the structure of their pupillage, and the structure of their scholarship interview. Prior to getting there, you will get an email confirming the address. This will vary depending where your interview is taking place. Some people it's Manchester, some people it's in London. If it is in London, it might look something like this. This is where I had my interview for the fun, And there are about 2 floors, I think. There may be more, but mainly when you walk in through the first floor, you see the middle floor and then the ground floor. And I think there is a first floor, but no one goes there. You don't go there for the interview. It's just 2 main floors that they take up for the interview, I believe. There are people at the desk that will sign you in. You are also making an impression on those people, not just the judges. Be nice to everyone. That is just common courtesy. And be on time. Don't be on time, actually, sorry. That's wrong advice. Be early, because lateness is not looked well upon. Obviously, if circumstances are out of your hands and you're late for reasons beyond your control, that is fine. But if it's well within your control, that is not good. So just be as early as you can so that you can have time to relax, to prep, to really get to know this new environment that you've been thrown into, to familiarize yourself and calm your nerves and just prepare for the interview. You will get there, register at the front desk. If you're anything like me, I was super early because I was coming from far. I made sure I left about an hour, I would say. So I arrived way too early in advance, and they do say it on the email to not arrive any earlier than 15 minutes, I think, or 25 minutes or something like that. But I still went in anyways, just to check to see if I could sign in. But I wasn't able to sit in the waiting area. They sent me out. They were just like, we can't have you in the waiting area. We made that kind of clear in the email. And I was like, yeah, I know. I just thought I should try my luck anyways. And I just wanted to be here early and on time. And I'm glad I was, because there was filming going on. Like at Lincoln's Inn, there's always a lot of filming going on. So you just never know which roads are going to be closed. So again, just get there early. It's for your benefit. Anyways, so if you do arrive too early, they will send you back out. And Lincoln's Inn is beautiful. The environment there is massive, and they just have really beautiful chambers all lined up very nicely. So you could just walk around and get your nerves out of your system in that way, just walking, kind of going over your notes. I would say don't go over your notes too much. By the time that I went back inside, which was about 50 minutes just before my interview, or just a few minutes before my interview, I didn't look at my notes anymore. I had a sticky note that I had written some brief things to just jog my memory about my advocacy exercise. But other than that, I didn't look at any notes. I wasn't trying to cram. I was just briefly reminding myself, and I wasn't going over it too much. In fact, I was having a conversation with someone opposite me. There is an area where you can leave your bag and coats, so don't worry. And the waiting room, because they control it so well, is definitely not crowded at all. To each interview room, what I do know is there are 3 judges. So 3 judges that are volunteered, that are practicing barristers, who will be judging your interview. I think that's not too bad, and you're sat opposite each other. So there's a table and they have all their sheets and all of the stack of applications with each person's name and things. And as you come in, they're like, oh, is this you? Okay, cool. They get your application out in front of them, ready to mark and make notes as necessary. And that's it, really. They do ask you for your consent to record the interview. You can say yes or no. I personally said no, so up to you if you want them to record your interview. You have every right to say no, and if you don't get penalized for it. So don't worry if you're like, oh, I actually don't want this to be recorded, because I feel more nervous knowing that it's going to be recorded. And they keep to time. They keep to time very, very well. It's about 20 minutes long, and 20 minutes sounds like a long time, but really 20 minutes is not a long time. By the time you explain and expand and maybe they ask you one or two more questions about it, it's not a long time. It goes like this. Each person takes turns asking you the questions. So, and the panelists will explain that to you on the day anyways. So it was like one person was asking me a question, one person at a time. So the first judge asked me a question, I responded. Then the second judge asked me a question, I responded. And then the third judge. They split it up in terms of, I think, the sections that they have to meet for the criteria. I'm not too sure. It might vary. But I know my last judge was specifically asking me about my advocacy exercise, and the other judges could then chime in if they wanted to, but I know that that was their specific role. And I know the woman in the middle, her job at the beginning was sort of asking me about my motivation and things like that. That is the structure of the interview at Lincoln's Inn. The 5-minute advocacy exercise is truly so short, and I will get into the advice of that in a bit. So my second piece of advice is about your mindset. Your mindset going into this interview is so important, because your mindset will exude in the way you carry yourself into the room, the way you speak, and your overall confidence when you're answering questions, even when you don't know what to say or you didn't prepare for that question. My best advice for you about your mindset is to remember the purpose is to sell yourself. But they do not expect you to be a barrister already made. They are simply looking for your potential to be phenomenal. Be confident in who you are is basically my advice. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in the fact that you are a good communicator. Be confident in the experiences that you have that have led you here. I didn't have mooting as an experience, and I was really nervous about that going into the interview, because I was like, everyone has mooting, like so many people have mooting on their applications, but I didn't. And I did try leading up to the interview, but I just couldn't get one in time, and that's okay. The mindset you need to have going into this is the experiences that I have and the experiences that I've gained between the time that I submitted my application to now are what will make me a great barrister. I will only keep building upon these experiences from here on out. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to have a whole lot of potential. And they wouldn't have invited you to the interview if they didn't think you had that potential. The point of the interview is to bring your potential to life. You've given them an application where they thought, oh, this is really good. We like the experiences you have. You've communicated this in a really great way. How do you communicate this in person? How do you communicate this orally? How do you communicate with your body language when someone else is speaking to you? How do you communicate in a pressured environment, which an interview inevitably is? It's about all of those things. That's what they're assessing, just how you manage the stress and the anxiety of the day, and also the inevitable random questions that they might ask you. So just focus on good, clear communication. You do not need to use complicated words. If you do not speak in a complicated manner in your everyday speech, do not bring that into the I cannot stress that enough. If you do not speak in a very convoluted way in your everyday life, don't bring that into the interview. It will show, and it will read really badly. So just get rid of whatever you think a barrister is like and just be yourself. Always have a structure to your speech is a tip in communicating clearly, because you don't want to ramble on. You want to take your audience on a very clear journey. So if you have 3 points in your head that you think you want to make, just say, I have 3 points that I'm going to make in regards to the question you just asked me. I think first is this, third is this, is this. Make it as clear and concise as possible. Remember that, and just know that you already have the ability and the skills to be the barrister that you're saying you will be. You just need to now show it off. So that's tip number 1. Be confident in your mindset and communicate clearly. My second tip is how to prepare and how to prepare for what you're asked. On how to prepare for the questions that they will ask you, there's quite a lot that I have to say about this. So I will start with prepare for everything, even the most obvious things. Even the obvious questions that you have on your written application, prepare for them. Have your written application out with you, see what you said, and see where you can expand or where you have newer experiences that have added to your reasoning or any of the above. So that's one. Two is check the cheat code question PDF that I have down below that has so many different questions that you will be asked on any scholarship panel, not just the bar course, but just any scholarship that you're applying to. They typically like to ask questions like this. Some are really out of the box, some are quite like specific to the bar. It's just good to have a rough answer of how you might answer this. For example, like, what book do you like, or what book do you read? You might not expect to be asked that, but you very well could. Not that I was asked that, but someone else had told me previously that they were asked that many years ago. So you very well could be asked that. So just prepare as much as you can. And a way to prepare for the document that I've attached down below is to create an evidence bank for yourself. So I worked at Clark's, for example, and from Clark's I gained a really good customer service ability, interpersonal skills, team working, all of those branches. So all of those titles, skills, team working, ability to, time management ability, and then specific experiences that actually develop those skills. That's how I would go through the question PDF that I have down below, and it's pretty much how I did go through it as well. Then after a while, after I had all of those experiences, just recalling all of my experiences of life that will ultimately make me a fantastic barrister, I then narrowed it down to like soft and hard skills. You don't have to do this part, but I think it's helpful, again, just in case they ask you something that you really don't expect. So soft skills is very like interpersonal skills. How a lot of people say interpersonal skills, but what experience that is specific to you do you have on your CV, and did you have on your written application, or have you gained since your written application that actually shows that you have interpersonal skills? For example, when I was working as citizens advice, I was working with a lot of clients that didn't speak English as their first language. I developed a rapport with them by learning some of the common phrases that they would use in their language. Like, that is interpersonal skills, going out of my way. Well, for me, it wasn't out of my way, but do you get what I mean? For some people, that's out of their way. It's just I take the extra care to show people that I care about their culture, I care about their language, things like that. So that's just an example. So go over your written application, go over your CV in general with a fine tooth comb. You want to make sure you know every single point you made and why you made it, so that if they ask you any questions, which they very well can, about your application, you know exactly what you said and why you said it, because you won't have that application in front of you, just pre-warning. So one question I was asked was, give an example of a time that you challenged authority and was able to persuade them. Practice the outrageous questions too, and practice the very common questions. Why do you want to become a barrister? Practice, practice, practice. I'm not saying get a script and like be like, oh, I want to become a barrister because da da da, and word for word. That is not natural. No one speaks like that. Practice. Your answer to this question should change a little bit every time you answer it, and it should get better a little bit every time you answer it. And it probably will change depending who your audience is as well. So that is another skill of a barrister. Like, you are communicating with people, you need to adapt the way you communicate depending on your audience. Now, I didn't have this at the time, but thank goodness now we have ChatGPT. So you could probably get ChatGPT to ask you questions based on your application, or to ask you questions based off the document that I've created down below. Any of the above. The important thing is just to practice it and go over your CV and your written application and anything you've done between submitting your application up until the interview point that you think can add and like boost up your application. Fourth tip is about the advocacy exercise. Now, this is just a 5-minute portion out of the 25-minute time that you have for the interview. The advocacy exercise is so short, but I did so much prep for it. You would have thought I was going to trial. because I prepared thoroughly for it. And I think, again, this is what made me stand out, because I had a panel and one of my judges on the panel was actually a family law barrister, and I was like, oh my god. Like, the minute I walked in and she said she was a family law barrister, I was like, great. This is great. I was nervous, but I was also like, oh, okay, this is a fun challenge, or like, this is going to be a fun discussion, because the topic I had chosen for my advocacy exercise was on family law. So I was like, okay, so she really knows what I'm talking about through and through. I can't get anything wrong. And she did ask me a question that I'm so grateful I prepared for. So I cannot stress enough, for the advocacy exercise, if you're talking about any area of law, even if you think it's so niche no one's going to know about it, prepare thoroughly. You need to have an understanding of it yourself in order to explain it in the simplest way possible for people who aren't well versed in that area. But then you also need to have such a good understanding of it that if someone is well versed in the area, you are able to therefore answer any question that they ask you about it. I think it's fine if you don't know an answer, to be honest. If you don't know, say you don't know, but do take time to show your thinking and reasoning. That is always going to gain you at least some points. Like, you know, maths GCSE, where they'll say, okay, even if you don't know the answer, just show your adding up, just show your workings. That's the advice here. So for my advocacy exercise, I knew my topic really well, and I was also very passionate about my topic. They will challenge you. They will challenge you on your advocacy exercise, or they will ask you to argue the opposing side. Please prepare for that as well. You don't have to prepare for that as extensively as you did for your side, the side that you're advocating for, but I would still say prepare for it as well as you can, because they definitely will probably ask you to advocate for the other side. Like, oh, okay, so like, you've said this, what argument do you think could be, what's the strongest argument of the opposing side? Mic over to you. So definitely prepare for that. Definitely prepare. I personally stood my ground on my argument because, again, I knew the area of law very well, and I liked the area of law, and I also thought what I was saying actually made a lot of sense. So I stood the ground that I was arguing very well. I did tell them the opposing side when they asked what's the strongest argument for the opposing side, and then I was like, I see it's the strongest argument, but ultimately I still think this is the weakness with it. You don't have to do that. You could just simply say this is the opposing side, full stop. But I just say stand your ground, because if you think your argument is right, unless you have made a factual error of law or like a factual mistake, or they've said actually you're entirely wrong, like this isn't actually how it works or what you should have considered, then I think it's good to stand your ground. It just shows that you can handle a little bit of like opposition, a little bit of friction to your argument, as anyone who is a barrister would be able to. So that's why I say that. Also, I think it's really nice to speak with excitement. Speak with excitement about the topic you're speaking about. I spoke with such excitement about the topic I was speaking about because I really liked it. I think that showed, and it also engages your audience. If you think about it like, I don't know, TikTok, YouTube. If you're filming a TikTok video, you're not going to be speaking in the most monotone voice, because everyone will clock out, everyone will be extremely bored, and no one's going to pay attention. It's the same with an audience, a live audience. You need to speak in a way that is engaging, not theatrical. If excitement isn't your natural demeanor, then maybe not. You want everything you're doing to be as natural to you as possible, but I personally do tend to speak with a bit of excitement when I'm speaking anyways, especially about topics I'm really passionate about. So I was speaking with excitement, hence why I put that as advice here. The point of the advocacy exercise is to be persuasive in the way that you argue your point. So pick a topic you like and argue it as persuasively as you can. So pick a point that you actually like. Don't pick a point Don't make a point just because you think, oh, this is going to be controversial and this is going to be like really different and exciting to the judges. No, pick something that actually aligns with you and your values and how you see the law and you would like to shape the law, or an area of the law that you find interesting. That's my advice. 5 minutes is not long, so don't prepare a long speech. Do not prepare a long speech. And also, I didn't go in with notes. I think a lot of the people I've spoken to that I was living with didn't go in with notes. It's a 5-minute conversation. It's like having a discussion with a friend and saying, this is an area of law that actually I think is an issue. I think the law should change because of this. Keep it short and sweet. Add evidence in there as well. Evidence that you can remember off the top of your head. So that doesn't need to be cases. That could just be, I read the Law Commission review. I read the entirety of it. So I read what they did. I knew some things off the top of my head, and that's how I was able to answer the question that the family law barrister asked me to develop on further. So read things like that. Read as much as you can that you can actually remember. Don't cram. Again, you want this to be as natural as possible. I stated my argument as a matter of fact. So start with a strong opening title, start with a strong line, something catchy, something that's, if you can, where you can, start with a strong and catchy opening line. It's okay to forget some points. I definitely forgot some of the points that I was making and I was like, oh my God. But they didn't know that. They wouldn't know that unless you showed that you forgot something. So again, keep your composure. If you forget something, that's fine. I would also really advise to talk at a slow pace. I say this because it gives you more time to think. So if you do happen to forget something, you're not going from speaking like this and really, really quickly to It's more like I'm speaking so slowly and this is my next point. So if I do forget anything, there are already natural pauses in between. That's just a tip. Again, it's fine for you to pause. No one is going to deduct marks from you just because you paused. It's just, again, about how you present yourself and how confident you are with that pause. So if you are going to pause, I would advise not saying ums and ahs too much. But again, don't psych yourself out by focusing on that too much. So the questions I asked was, what was your greatest achievement or lesson in your career so far? And is there anything about my experience that leaves doubt about like what I've said here, that leaves doubt in your mind about my ability to succeed that you would like me to clarify? Now, they didn't answer the second question. They said, I think that would be unfair for us to tell you. So no, we're not going to answer. And I was like, fair enough. At least I asked because it showed confidence. I was ready to clear up any misunderstanding that they had, and I think it shows a great deal of confidence to ask that question, because honestly I was like, oh my God, imagine if they asked me something I can't answer. Woo. But I was like, no, I'm prepared for this question. I'm ready. Give it to me. I'm ready to put your mind at ease just so that you could give me the scholarship, please. So I'm glad I did ask them that question, because their reaction was like, oh. I was like and in terms of what was their greatest achievement or lesson in career so far, imposter syndrome, it's very, very, very common amongst, academic people, and at the bar, I think it's so understandable. On this note, you will see people, I'm not from an Oxbridge background, and I don't think it's a bad thing to be from an Oxbridge background, but at the bar, it is something that you may feel intimidated by if you're not from an Oxbridge background. And I just want to say, like, don't feel any less worthy of being in these spaces and in these rooms just because you didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. You are still very intelligent to get as far as you have, and you will get even further than you think without your Oxford and Cambridge qualification. You do not need Oxford and Cambridge to be an amazing barrister. That is a fact. I would like you to prove me wrong. Lastly, on the imposter syndrome aspect of things, I think it's so natural to feel, inadequate, for the bar, it seems really intimidating, especially when you have an idea of what barristers are like and you're like, oh, that could never be me. I don't speak, I don't speak in the Queen's English perfectly and all these other things. You don't have to have perfect grades, although you do have to have good grades. And I don't know if they care about the A-levels so much. I just think there will be points where you don't feel adequate enough, but you have to be your biggest advocate in this life. You really, really need to be your biggest advocate on this journey, because no one else is going to come and tell you, hey, you're going to be an amazing barrister. Only you know what experiences you've had and who you are at your core that will make you a good barrister and the characteristics that you have. My best advice for imposter syndrome is to keep practicing, keep showing up, and that will build your confidence, because confidence is built through competence, and competence is built through action, taking action towards the things that you want. So the point of the interview is to persuade. So just going into the interview, I was ready to answer the question, why should we give you the scholarship? I knew in my heart of hearts, yes, there are loads of people who are probably very deserving of this, but for me, getting the scholarship wasn't about beating out loads of other people. It was me being the best that I could be on that day. You cannot control what the outcome will be. You can only control the effort you put into preparing for the interview. You can only control what you say at the interview. So you only have control over yourself, and that's all I will advise you to focus on. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. I think it's so important that you don't think about what the outcome will be. Just think about giving the best advocacy and showing up to the best of your ability at the interview. Focus on yourself, empower yourself, encourage yourself, because again, no one's going to come and tell you you're going to be an amazing barrister. You need to do that for yourself. You're self-employed, you need to be holding your hand the whole way through, and the journey is not easy. Even if you get this scholarship, the journey is not easy. So just have that care for yourself and really cheer for yourself every step of the way, every single step of the way. You will become an extremely successful barrister. Yes, I don't have all the experience in the world yet. Yes, I don't come from an affluent background. I didn't go to Oxford and Cambridge. I don't speak the Queen's English perfectly, but I will still be an amazing barrister because of that. Actually, not in spite of that, because of that, I will be an amazing barrister. That's what makes me unique. My experiences, my life experiences have shaped me to the person I am today, and I will be a great barrister because that's what makes me great, is that I've had the person that I am. And I think that's what you just need to keep reminding yourself, like, you are and will be an amazing barrister irrespective of whether you get this scholarship or not. Don't let this scholarship be the defining aspect of your life. Now, my last point is in regards to the residential scholarship. I still don't know how Lincoln's Inn specifically assess this. I know that there are 2 inns of court that give a residential scholarship, Gray's Inn and Lincoln's Inn. For Lincoln's Inn, I truly don't know what they assess it on. These are just the things I know, having lived with everyone else that got the residential scholarship. So 11 people in total will get the residential scholarship, and we all are doing different areas of law. It's a good mix of women and men, and honestly, I think it just comes down to confidence again, which is why I keep talking about confidence. You're really tired and sick of it, but I think it all comes down to confidence. When we spoke about the scholarship, everyone said their advocacy exercise was an area of law that they really liked, they really loved it, and they were all very enthusiastic about that area. Like, they were quite confident. It does feel like a random pick of a hat, because honestly, I don't know what they assess it on, but I think this is why it's important just all round to be a very kind and friendly person. I can say that we're all quite sociable. Maybe that's an element that they assess it on. I'm not too sure. Anyway, I hope that helped. I'm not too sure my advice about the residential scholarship was all that helpful, but that is truly all I know. If you do have any questions, please leave them down below. And if you have been awarded the scholarship yourself from any of the inns of court, please feel free to leave your advice below. Like I said, if you do not get the scholarship, please don't let that knock your confidence. It might for a little while, pick it back up. It takes a lot of resilience to work and be become a barrister, I would know pupillage is a journey. And I wish you all the best of luck.